made a bar graph showing the results of 120 students that took a Unit 6 test. So I know that there are 126 students. Based on her bar graph, she determined that 80% of her students got a C or above. Explain whether her statement is correct or not. So that means true or false. Now, since we are working with a true or false statement, that means that I'm not sure if this 80% is correct or not. So I'm going to set up my own proportion to see if it's true or false, okay? So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at these and we're going to see how many kids got what. So if I take a look at my A, 22 students got an A. For B, 44 students got a B. For C, 30 students got a C. 18 students got a D, and then 6 students got an F. Now, it says C or above. So which numbers qualify as C or above? A C or above is going to be a C, B, or an A. So that means I have 30 students, 44 students, and 22 students. So how many students got a C or above? 96 students got a C or above. Now remember, this 80% here is a percent, and a percent means you set up a proportion. In this case, nothing changed. So I know that I have a part over whole equals percent over 100. What is my part? My part is the 96 students that got a C or above. What is my whole? My whole is the 120 students. And I hope that my percent is 80, but I'm not sure, so I'm going to put an X there. So I have 96 over 120 equals X over 100. Cross multiply, 96 times 100 is 9600 equals 120 times X, which gives me 120X. Divide both sides by 120. These zeros right here cross out, and that leaves me with, I'm going to start with 96 divided by 12. 96 divided by 12 is 8. And then I just tack on this last little zero that's right there. So that does give me 80%. So this would be a true statement because it does give me 80% at the end. The circle graph shows that the elective classes are taken by 600 students. Okay, so I know this right here, 600 students. Now, looking at this circle graph, that's the first thing I'm going to look at. I see that we have a blank right here where orchestra goes. In order to figure out that blank, I know that all circle graphs add up to equal 100%. Well, right now, I'm going to go through and I'm going to add all of the other numbers up to figure out what my orchestra is. So go through and add all of those numbers up together. When you add all of those up, you find that 90% is taken up. So I know that the last the last percent has to be 10, so that I would have 90 plus 10 equals 100. So this one says, how many students took robotics? Well, if I look right here, I see that robotics is 13% of my class. Now, since I have a percent, I set up a proportion. So I have part over whole equals percent over 100. Do I know what the part is? Do I know how many students took robotics? No. So I'm going to put X. Do I know what the whole is? Yes, the whole is 600. Do I know what the percent is? Yeah, it's 13. So now I'm going to have X over 600 equals 13 over 100. And I just cross multiply. So I have 600 times 13. 6 times 13 gives me 78. And I just tack on my two little zeros right there. And then I have X times 100, which gives me 100X. Divide both sides by 100. These zeros right here cross out, and you'll find that it's X equals 78. So I know that 78 students. This one says, how many more students took band than took orchestra? So first, I have to figure out how many students took band. Well, I see right here that band was 28%. So I'm going to set up a proportion using 28%. What would that proportion look like? I would have X, because I don't know how many students took band, over 600 equals my percent of kids that took band, which was 28. over 100. I start with 600 times 28. And what is 600 times 28? Well, 28 times 6 gives me 208. That is not true. It gives me 168. Sorry. And then I just tack on these two little zeros that are right here. And that gives me 100x over here. Divide both sides by 100. And this equals 168 kids that took band. Now I have to figure out how many kids took orchestra. So what would my proportion look like for my orchestra? I would have x, because I don't know how many students took orchestra, over 600 equals 10 over 100. Cross multiply, 6 times 1 is 6, and then I just tack on 1, 2, 3 zeros. Equals 100 times x, so I have 100x. Divide both sides by 100. These cross out, and that gives me 60 kids that took orchestra. So when it says how many more took band than took orchestra, how do I figure that out? I subtract. So I would do 168. I'm going to put that somewhere else because that's not what goes in that blank. I would do 168 minus 60, and that's going to give me 108 more kids took band than took orchestra. Coming over here, it says the circle graph shows a survey of 200 people that were asked their favorite season. And it says how many people chose winter as their favorite season. So if I look right here, winter is 13%. So set up a proportion to see how many people like winter. Remember, I have part over whole equals percent over 100. In this case, I don't know how many people like winter, so I'm going to put x there. My whole is going to be my total number of people surveyed, which was 200. My percent is 13. So I have x over 200 equals 13 over 100. Cross multiply, x times 100 gives me 100x. 200 times 13. 2 times 13 gives me 26, and then I tack on my 2 zeros. Divide both sides by 100. I get x equals 26 divided by 1, which just gives me 26. This one says how many more people chose summer than chose spring. So I'm going to look at summer, and I see that summer is 34%. So I want you to set up a proportion where you use summer. So you should have gotten x over 200 equals 34 over 100. Cross multiply, x times 100 is 100x. 200 times 34. Well, 2 times 34 gives me 68, and then I tack on my 2 zeros. Divide both sides by 100, and we get 68. Now we calculate spring, so set up the proportion for spring if spring is 25%. I would have x, because I don't know how many people like spring, over 200 equals 25 over 100. Cross multiply, 200 times 25, 2 times 25 is 50, and then I just tack on these 2 zeros that are right there. Equals x times 100, which gives me 100x. Divide both sides by 100. These zeros cross out, and that leaves me with 50. And it says how many more people. So how do I figure out how many more people? I subtract. So I do 68 minus 50, and that gives me 18. Last question, it says, Krista bought 4.5 pounds of cookie dough for her son's fundraiser. She decided to divide the cookie dough into 3 equal portions to freeze for later. How many portions was each portion of cookie dough? So remember, each means I either multiply or divide. And in this case, what would I do? In this case, I would divide because it says she decided to divide it up. So I would have 4.5 divided by 3. What's your first step? We cannot divide mixed numbers, so I would do the Texas method. And I would get 2 times 4, which is 8, plus 1 is 9 over 2, divided by 3. Now that 3 has to have a what? It has to have 1 under it. After that, what do? When you divide, you change, and you flip. So I have 9 over 2 divided by 1 over 3. We simplify before we multiply. So this 9 right here turns into a 3, and this 3 right here turns into a 1. Tops times tops, bottoms times bottoms. I have 3 times 1, which gives me 3, and then 2 times 1, which gives me 2. We do have to turn this right here back into a mixed number. So I would do what? I would do 3 divided by 2. 2 goes into 3 one time. 1 times 2 is 2. Subtract from that gives me 1. Now this 1 right here is going to be my numerator. So I would have 1 as a whole number, 1 as a numerator, and 2 as a denominator.